everyone, and welcome to the Foster Files. My name is Kelly, and I'm a foster with a rescue in Pittsburgh area of Pennsylvania. And today I have a guest from all the way on the other side of the country who were talking about the weather they've been experiencing and making me very jealous as a person who just sees clouds all the time. But today with me, I have Laura and Rika, and they are both in the Denver, Colorado area. And they are connected through a program out there called Denver Pet Partners. Laura happens to be the director of marketing and communications with Denver Pet Partners. So she's going to talk to us all about their program and the work that they do with rescue animals and really helping facilitate the bond between humans and their animals. And then Rika has a dog that she worked with through Denver Pet Partners. 2 dogs. She's correcting me. She has 2 dogs that she worked with through Denver Pet Partners. So we're going to hear all about them. So ladies, thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Wonderful to be here.
If it's all right, I would just like to start with Laura. Laura, I'd really like to hear a synopsis of the program and of the work that you do with Denver Pet Partners.
Yeah, I love to talk about it, so I'd love to share the information. Denver Pet Partners is a local nonprofit organization. We were founded in 2001 by Diana McQuarrie. She just saw the need for a program like this in the Denver area. We have over 130 volunteers. They volunteer with their therapy animals, like Rika does. Currently, we have primarily dogs, but we actually also have some therapy cats, horses, and rabbits. In the past, we've had guinea pigs and llamas. Everyone is a volunteer, even our board of directors. We have no paid employees. We never charge for what we do. So volunteers like Rika take their therapy animals to visit people. And currently our volunteers visit at a wide variety of places. They go to hospitals and visit patients, cancer care centers, hospice, senior living facilities, veterans facilities. They work with children in educational programs in schools and libraries. We have volunteers in the judicial system supporting the victims and witnesses in their pretrial preparation before they go into the courtroom. We work with at-risk youth. We're at colleges during finals week. We were recently at Evergreen High School. There was a school shooting recently. And when the students returned to school, they asked us to come in and be there to support the children as they return to school. So basically that power of the human-animal bond is so strong. We provide comfort to people in a lot of situations. We work with people in physical and occupational therapy. Bringing a dog into the situation makes it a lot more fun, right? And makes you more inclined to want to do your physical therapy. Any place we can provide some comfort, some companionship, help people out with our animals.
So if I am to understand this correctly, you guys might be contacted by someone like Rika, and you will then put them through like a training program to make sure that their animals are equipped to support people in the way that you do. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. So we're actually part of a national organization called Pet Partners. Pet Partners has community partners around the country, and we're one of them. Pet Partners sets training standards and evaluation standards. So volunteers like Rika have to take a training class, which is by themselves without their animals. They go through the training process with their animals separately from our organization. So we don't train animals. And then when they feel that they are ready, Rika, as a volunteer with her animal, would come and go through an evaluation with us. And the evaluation is quite comprehensive. It takes 30 to 45 minutes. We go through about 20 different scenarios in the evaluation, and we make sure that both the handler and the animal are equipped to do this type of volunteer work.
Wow, that's incredible. I love the idea that you guys are just being contacted by community members in need and taking these animals out and offering comfort in what can be really traumatic times. That's really incredible. So how long has Denver Pet Partners been operating? And then how long, if you know the answer to this, has Pet Partners nationwide been operating?
Denver Pet Partners started in 2001. Pet Partners started long before that. It might be about 40 years, actually. Before Pet Partners was called Pet Partners, it was called the Delta Society. I actually had a dog over 20 years ago who I evaluated with the Delta Society, a rescue dog who became a therapy dog back then. So I've been familiar with Pet Partners and the Delta Society for many years.
Well, that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you guys today. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but I really wanted to get out there that a dog does not have to be a purebred dog. A dog does not have to be with a family member or with a family or in training since it's a puppy in order to be an incredible therapy and support animal. So can you talk to me a little bit about the things that you guys look for in dogs? Because obviously papers is not one of them.
No, absolutely not. I mentioned we have over 130 volunteers with their animals. I think our smallest dog probably weighs less than 10 pounds, and we have dogs who weigh well over 100 pounds. We have dogs who actually are AKC champions, and we have dogs who are rescue dogs. We have dogs who people adopted as 2-month-old puppies and dogs who came into people's lives much later. But any animal, to be a therapy animal, needs to like people, needs to like meeting a variety of people, needs to enjoy going to a variety of places. They need to enjoy greeting people, but they need to be able to do it calmly and quietly so that the situation is safe. Rika will tell you in a minute about all the different kinds of places she has been with her animals. And if you just imagine your pet at home, some of them really wouldn't be happy just showing up at a new place, at a school, at a library, at a hospital, right? And even with the therapy animals, not every situation is right for every animal. My therapy dog I worked with did not like the hospital for some reason, and we had to stop volunteering there. But there were other places that she enjoyed going. So we really encourage people to get to know their animals. Just because they are registered as a therapy animal, it doesn't mean they want to go everywhere and do everything. Some of them, I think Rika will tell you, enjoy children. Some enjoy older people. Some enjoy schools, but maybe not the hospital. And it's so important that the handler understand their animal and understand what is best for them. So, for example, Pet Partners limits us to 2 hours of volunteering per day. And when I started volunteering, I thought that seemed like a very small number. And then I realized that 2 hours of volunteering for an animal really takes quite a toll on them. They're very tired at the end. I was at a university today with a group of therapy animals, and after about an hour, it's tiring for the therapy animals because so many people are coming up and interacting with them and touching them, right? So we really, really teach the handlers to be in tune with their animals, just like any animal parent should be, and understand what is best for their animal and not take them into situations where it's not the best thing for the animal.
I love that you guys look at that as an individualized approach. I mean, one of the things that I talk about a lot is not every person is going to be equipped to handle certain situations and handle every single animal. And if you are in a position where, as a foster or as a volunteer with a rescue organization, you are this one particular animal you can't just figure out, it's okay to say, this situation isn't for me. And it's so good that they can see for their particular animals that one situation is going to be better than maybe another. So, Rika, tell us all about your dogs and how they came to you, and then how you came to Denver Pet Partners.
Super. I'm delighted. Who doesn't love talking about their dogs?
Right?
So, I do a lot of rescue and rehab. I've been focusing fairly predominantly in the terrier breed. To that end, there was a Cairn Terrier who was relinquished into one of our premier shelters in Denver, now termed Colorado Humane, but at the time was Denver Dumb Friends League from the late 1800s, meaning they're not stupid, they just can't speak. So I was having lunch with a friend of mine, and she was so excited. She worked there as a trainer for people, not for animals. And she was so excited because this little female Cairn Terrier had come in to rescue. She says, "This is the perfect dog for you. You have to adopt her." And I said, "Well, I really want an older wire fox terrier. I don't want a puppy Cairn." And we know what happened next. So she came into...
That's how it always goes.
That's exactly. It's like, never go to PetSmart and buy your equipment before you go to see the dog, because you know what you're going to come home with.
Right.
Same thing.
Right.
So Bindi came to me. I named her Bindi because I have friends who are Hindi, and a Bindi is the red circle that Hindi women put on their foreheads to indicate their marital status. And also at that time, Steve Irwin had just died, and his daughter is named Bindi from Lake Bindi, which is in northern Australia. So that's how Bindi came to her name. She came to me, she was a terrier puppy. So destructive, barky, really affectionate, and annoying. So it took a long time. One of the things from being in rescue and rehab I know to do is that patience and consistency is the key. And I would say that to all of your foster parents. The dogs need routine. They need that nice mixture of discipline and love. I just kept pouring it on for Bindi, and slowly but surely she turned around, and then I started noticing that she wanted to go up to people a lot. About that time, I met Diana Macquarie, had the great good fortune, who is the founder of what is now Denver Pet Partners, and she mentored me. So she started telling me the kinds of things to be training Bindi for. I started doing that and got evaluated, and we passed, which is always, it's a rigorous evaluation. So Bindi was with me, and we started working at a senior center. She weighs 23 pounds. So she's a Toto dog. So if you picture Toto in The Wizard of Oz, she's a silver Karen rather than the brindle.
Okay.
And when I see that movie and see Judy Garland picking up Toto as though she were a little football, I'm thinking, you have never met my girl, who is 22 pounds. We had to stop going to senior centers because I had to lift her. She's so short that to get her human height, I was lifting her 40 times in a 2-hour shift, and I just couldn't do it. So then we started doing other things. We started doing schools. We work with special needs kids in the schools predominantly, also reading programs. We also do conventions, de-stress events. So that's Bindi. And then I got called, somebody had found a little dog that they thought was a terrier running around in a park in Denver. I went to pick him up. He was not a terrier by any means, but what he was freaked out. Somebody had kicked in his ribs, burned him with cigarettes. He was frantic with anxiety and terror. I took him in, got him to the vet, got him to the groomer. We had to muzzle him because he was biting everyone. He was just terrified. He didn't like men very much, so I have to conclude that his abuser was probably of that gender. So he would not go near a man. As I started working with him, I started alerting all my neighbors when we would go out for walks, and my wonderful men friends would come out and sit in the driveway. And over time, he would go up to them and let them pet him. And that's how I built trust for the male part of our population. It just evolved over time, and he would watch Bindi as she would interact. He learned from her. And it turns out that he is a very affectionate little guy. So I evaluated with him, and we passed. So now I am able to volunteer with both dogs. I do, for instance, this last week, Baku did 2 libraries. Bindi did a sensory performance at one of our local theaters, which means they do special performances for children with special needs. We have teams there, so if the children get overstimulated, they can come up and get comfort from the dog teams, the therapy teams. Tomorrow we're working a convention. We have more requests than we have teams. When Laura says that we have about 120 working teams, we probably have 200, 250 requests. And those are carefully evaluated to see how they mesh with our mission.
I just want to mention we use the term team to refer to a person and their therapy animal because you are a team, right? You're working together and working with each other. And yes, Denver Pet Partners and probably every other therapy animal organization has absolutely more requests than they can fill. because we're all volunteers, we don't assign people to do things. We send out a request to our members and say, we've been asked to be at this school or we've been asked to be at this conference. And then whoever is available and feels it's a good fit for them will sign up for that activity. But our director of program says to me, if we had 1,300 teens, we couldn't fill all the requests. That's how much people want animals in the work environment, in the school environment. They just understand the power that these animals bring to these situations.
Oh, it's palpable. I own my own business, and 9 years ago, a little under 9 years ago, when I started my business, I had my dogs in the office. Ironically enough, the first dog that came into the office, he was a big, lovely black lab, and I believe he was a shepherd mix, but his name was Denver. And I'm still not over having lost him this year. But he was so great because he approached people exactly how you described. He always wanted to say hi to everybody, but he never rushed people. It was always just this like slow wobble over to say hello. And you could hear people's attitude change. Like I remember having customers come in and they would be maybe upset about something. And as soon as they would see the dog, everything would change. I mean, I had people that would switch to my business from another one because they're like, I know you're a dog lover. I love your dogs. I want to be with a fellow animal lover. I can't even imagine how when you're dealing with trauma or you have a special needs child or you are a senior who's not getting a lot of visitors, how special that can be to have those animals come in.
Back a few years ago, they had a 25th anniversary commemoration ceremony for the Columbine high school shooting. I actually still get choked up about this 5 years later. And some of the people who had been students and staff at Columbine High School during the shooting had never been back there. And they decided to go back for the 25th commemoration ceremony. And they asked us to come and they stationed our teams outside the building. And the former students came up to our teams and said, I haven't been back in this building. If you guys were not here, I couldn't go back in this building. Stopping and seeing the dogs and spending time with the dogs just gave them something, right? I don't know that I can put it into words. And I studied this. I know the scientific things that happen in our body when we interact with animals. I know from my lifetime how I feel when I interact. Something about having those dogs there for the former students to stop and see gave them the strength to go in that building again. That's the most powerful thing I think I've heard. I've been doing this for 11 years, and that's one of the most powerful things I've heard. But there are hundreds and hundreds of other stories like that.
Each of us handlers have miracle stories. It's stunning.
Yeah.
If I might, I worked with a little boy who was severely autistic. We would go into the classroom. He was in the far corner, and the instant the door opened and we went in, he would start screaming uncontrollably. That went on for a year and a half. And little by little, the screaming stopped. He started moving further into the room. And by the time he left the program, he was able to sit with the dog. He still wouldn't touch him, but he would be in proximity. And that was one of the most miraculous things that's happened to us.
Yeah, we've had people sometimes they're from other cultures where dogs don't mean the same thing that they do to most Americans, right? Or Europeans. Right. People from other cultures who have never touched an animal because they've been taught not to. People who are afraid of animals because they've grown up in an environment where a dog means a fighting dog or a police dog. People who have been bitten as children and are now afraid. And we've had those people actually watch our dogs at work and finally get up the courage to come in and touch one of our animals, and again, that just speaks about how wonderful our animals are, because the animals who are able to do this, again, they sit calmly, they sit quietly, right? They interact gently with people. And so people get the courage to come and visit with these animals when they're afraid of the average dog that they meet out on the street.
Do the animals that go through your program, do they come out with any sort of particular certification or anything that any sort of designation?
So the National Pet Partners Organization, as I mentioned, we're part of that, and they create the training standard and they create that evaluation that we administer. We have Pet Partners registered evaluators who can administer that evaluation. Pet Partners likes to say that the therapy animal team is registered. They don't use the term certified because they're not certifying you to do anything, but we call our team registered therapy animal teams. And people like Rika, anybody volunteering, they have to take that evaluation every 2 years. So the thing is, as people change, as animals grow and age, some things change, and animals and people might no longer be suited for this work. Or it gives us an opportunity to talk to people as their animals age. Rika's therapy animals are older now, and she may be able to tell you she's had to adapt to what she does with them. An older animal may no longer want to walk through a big hospital. That's too much for them. They might prefer to go to the library where they generally lay down while the kids read to them, right? We are always adapting. Or I mentioned my therapy dog who didn't like the hospital after a while, and we had to stop doing that, right? We're always adapting and changing. And again, it really is all about what's best for the animal. It's best for the animal, it's best for the handler, and it's best for the people we're interacting with. Our program director uses the phrase, it's a win-win-win situation, right? It has to be right for everybody or we won't do it.
How do you guys raise funds?
So as I mentioned, we never charge for our services. We operate on a very, very small budget because we have no paid employees. We have no office space. Our money goes to insurance and website maintenance and providing equipment to our teams. So we rely on donations from the community. And we do sometimes have some corporate donors or some local partners who donate to us. And that's how we raise money. That's how we get through financially.
How you keep it going, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let me ask you this then. The trainers then, I imagine, are all volunteer as well, right? They would have to be.
Well, we don't train the animals. So
That's right, you mentioned
people
that.
like Rika need to work either on their own or with a trainer outside the organization.
Okay.
But all those evaluators who evaluate the teams are volunteers, and Rika is an instructor, actually a Pet Partners instructor. They are volunteers. As I mentioned, the board of directors, everybody's a volunteer.
I think it's amazing that, and it makes sense to me that you're an instructor now and you are looking at this at a higher level because you saw this little terrier who was afraid of everything and afraid of people and biting and needing to be muzzled. And you work with that dog enough that now it's working in a therapy setting. I think that there are a lot, I know that there are a lot of people who get dogs that are from backgrounds where they've been traumatized or they've been abused or they've been neglected or they've been starved. And it's really hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel to be able to say, like, not even to go as far as be a therapy animal, but just get to a point where that dog can be kind of trusted around sort of any situation, people in and out of the house, by itself, with others, whatever that might look like. So, like, how long did it take you to get Baku to that point where you felt like, okay, I might be able to do this with him as well?
It probably took a good 2 years. And I'm a big believer in communicating with our animals. I think they understand a lot more than we give them credit for. So my message always to my animals is, I believe in you. You can do this. These skills are going to help you so much. I love you. This is your home. You're safe here. All of those messages. And then I make sure that all of my actions are congruent with those messages. So for Baku, I would take his little face and his really big ears, which are his superpower, and I would say to him, I believe in you. You can do this. Here, let's try this again. So patience, 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 and also patience for me. My tipping point with Baku is he came in because one of my other dogs had died, and I needed him to be able to get along with Bindi, because had he attacked Bindi or been unpleasant or unkind to her, I would have to rehome him because Bindi was there first. She was my priority. So I kept working toward that goal, is getting that connection, getting them to be a pack. So patience, consistency, good messaging for him and for me, because every now and then I would look at myself in the mirror and I'd say, you can do this. Keep it up. I believe in you.
And the things that we teach our therapy animals, really, most of them are things that I wish everybody would teach their pets. Not every animal can be a therapy animal or will be, but we teach our animals to calmly greet people, to walk quietly on a leash, to sit and down and stay and calm when asked to. We teach them to be comfortable around wheelchairs and walkers and loud noises. And one of the evaluation exercises is a man in a robe that's flapping with a hat and a walker coming at the animal, right? These are all things that benefit your animals, even if they're just pets, having them be comfortable in the world. And of course, there are exceptions, right? There are some animals who have been so traumatized or have problems, and they're never going to be comfortable in all those situations. But being able to take your animal to places and having them be comfortable and happy and having them be able to interact with people safely and calmly, right? These things make your animal happier and calmer in the world, even if they're never going to be a therapy animal.
Do you have either a list of trainers that help, like if somebody like me came to you and said, hey, I want to get my dog, I think my dog has the potential for this. I want to get my dog to that point, but I don't know where to start. Do you have resources for them to say, hey, here's some literature and videos on how to do this? Or do you have like a list of trainers you recommend? Or do you sometimes pair them with another volunteer? How do you go about that?
We try to not specifically recommend trainers just because we don't know all the trainers in the area and we don't want to play favorites or endorse any one trainer. We tell people, it's funny, one of our other board members says, I tell people to find a trainer close to home because then they'll go. We tell people, find a trainer who's doing this positively, right? There are no physical corrections, no harsh corrections. The therapy animals, when they evaluate and when they visit, cannot wear a choke collar. They can't wear a prong collar. They just need a flat buckle collar or a martingale collar or a harness or a vest. So, you want to do this with love, if that's the right way to say this, right? Mm-hmm. With consistency. Rika talked about all these things. And some people train their animals on their own. They have enough experience. I'm a bit lazy, so I like to go to training classes because then I do it, right? At home, I get a little bit lazy. When we're out visiting with our animals, we have to think about the image that we present. Now, we treat our animals the same way at home, I hope, as when we're visiting. But when we are visiting, if we show up with a prong collar on an animal, what does that say to people, right?
Right.
It says this is a dog who can't be trusted to not pull or lunge. And so we always have to think about the impression we're creating out there in the world, that we want you to feel confident letting these animals visit with your children or your grandmother or someone on a walker or a child with autism. So how we interact with the animals is so important.
And if I might add to that, most all of us handlers have what we call a kit. For my dogs, they each have their little blanket, which is their place. So when I take that blanket into any environment, they know it has their smell on it. They know that's their safe place. And I'm always right there with them. I have a water bottle. Most of the teams have what we call calling cards, which are little business cards with the dog's picture on it and a little bit about the dog. Everyone loves those. So we always make sure we have a stack of those. So everybody develops their own kit, and that helps us be more portable, but it also helps that consistency. So they know when their little blanket goes down, that's their place. They're safe. I'm right there by them. And I always make sure that I'm talking with them or petting them, or there's a connection there.
Yes, I had a different collar I would use for my dog when we were going to volunteer. And that started because it was such a pretty collar. I didn't want to use it every day, right? So we would visit with it. But I think she knew when I snapped that collar on. And a lot of people will tell you, we provide a therapy animal vest to the animals. A lot of people will tell you when they get that vest out, their animal gets really excited because they know they're going somewhere and doing something, right? And putting that vest on, they're working.
So this is a little bit of, I think, a hot button issue societally right now. I know it's something that drives me as a person who loves animals and respects service and therapy animals to the utmost. So what is the difference between, you knew what I was going to say. You guys can't see it, but Laura got a big smile on her face and Rika put her hands in her hair. She's like, we know where she's going with this conversation. Because I personally, it drives me insane when people call their animal, a service animal or a therapy animal, but then I can see that they're out in public and they clearly don't have control. That animal is clearly not trained to anywhere near what I would consider to be a service animal at all. And it seems as if there's definitely some leeway that's being taken so that they can maybe just have their animal in a public space that it wouldn't otherwise be okay. So I'm just curious about how you guys make that distinction and sort of what your thoughts on that are.
So therapy animals have no legal access rights. Rika cannot take her dog somewhere unless she is invited. And as a matter of fact, when we're asked to come to a school, a library, or corporate environment, we ask if animals are allowed in the building because we have to clarify these are not service animals. We have no legal access allowed. And as a matter of fact, Rika could lose her registration with her animals if she took them places and said they were service dogs or said they had access because they were therapy animals. That is not the case, right? Honestly, it drives us crazy because our therapy animals are so well trained and so well behaved. And we see the fake service dogs. I travel a lot and I see it in the airport constantly. I saw it in the United Club the other day, a little dog on someone's lap at the bar, and it had a little vest that said service animal on it. And maybe it was a service animal. It's not my call to say that. There are many different kinds of service animals, but I see them all the time. Those dogs who are at the end of the leash, a true service animal, think of the dogs you see guiding someone who's visually impaired, right? Or assisting someone who is hearing impaired or in a wheelchair. A true service animal is so thoroughly trained and tested and pretty much bomb-proof. And they are at the handler's side. And when the handler sits down, they know how to curl up in a little ball and be out of the way. On a plane, in an auditorium. They're not out at the end of the leash and they're not going out to people and they're not trying to go get people's food, right? So quite honestly, it makes me crazy. And I wish there would be in the US some national criteria, qualifications, documentation for what really is a service animal, because it puts businesses and people in a really bad place, right? The people in the United Club could not question if this really was a service animal. There are two legal questions you're allowed to ask about service animals, but nobody wants to do that now for fear of being told that they're discriminating against the person with the service animal. So, short answer, I'm sure, Rika, you feel the same way, right? When you see a fake or a questionable service animal out there.
And sometimes they're easy to spot because, to your point, the animals are so ill behaved that we know that they haven't had training. So it's so easy. And a lot of people do it so that they can get their animals into apartments that have no pet policies, because if an animal is an assistance animal, then they're permitted to do that. It's the laws are murky and they need to be strengthened to prevent that kind of idiocy.
I agree. Laura, I want to go back to the thing that you just said, that there are two questions that you can ask about service animals. Because to your point, I am a business owner and I don't get a lot of people coming into my business with that claim, but I would love to know what those two legal questions are.
So under the Americans with Disabilities Act, staff in public places are legally permitted to ask two questions, only two questions. Is the dog a service animal required because of a disability? What work or task has the dog been trained to perform? So you cannot say to somebody, do you have diabetes? Do you have a heart condition? What do you have wrong with you? But you can say, do you require this animal because you have a disability? and what does the dog do? So I don't have to say to you, I have a seizure disorder, but I would have to say to you, this dog can detect when I'm having a seizure or when my blood sugar is low. So those are the two questions that legally you can ask.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because I think that there's way too much muddiness. There's way too much gray. There's way too much unknown around that. And like, to your point, yeah, I don't ever want to be on the other side of someone's cell phone video going, you're discriminating against my service animal. I'm like, cool, because your animal just like jumped on a piece of furniture or jumped on the counter or did this or that. And so, but it is good to know that there are two legal questions that can be asked. So, is this dog a service animal required to assist their disability? And what is this dog trained to do?
Right. But unfortunately, you're not allowed, I don't believe you're allowed to ask about any kind of documentation or,
No, I'm pretty sure you're not. Yeah.
So it's, as earlier, I wish there were some kind of system, right, of ensuring in a better way that these truly are service animals trained to perform a task, and they should be tested. I mean, our animals go through 40-minute test I discussed with you.
For service animals, I think it is really easy to see. We have, in the town where I live, they do these Fridays on Fifth events, and there was a really adorable bull terrier. And it was very clear that that was a service animal, because to your point, he always had his eyes on his handler, unless his handler said, go ahead, you may say hello, that kind of thing. And then as soon as because she was in a motorized wheelchair, and as soon as she said, okay, in your place, he crawled right up, he sat in his spot, and they were on their way. And it was very clear to see that, he was trained to assist her.
There are just amazing service animals out there. I mean, if you go online and look at the videos of what they can do, right? And I'm not debating the need for a service animal or that they should be allowed out. They're absolutely life-saving in some cases. But there just should be some way to ensure that they truly are trained and tested and retested, as our animals are periodically, to make sure they're still capable of doing the job.
The way I describe to it is, envision a pyramid, and at the very top of the pyramid are the working dogs. Bomb sniffers, cadaver dogs, search and rescue. These are dogs you should never approach. They are not pets. They are not there to be petted. So that's the very apex of the triangle. In the middle are the support animals. So those are animals trained for a specific condition for an individual. Also, don't approach. And then the broad base are the comfort animals or therapy animals, which is what we do in Denver Pet Partners. It's just an easy way to visualize the strata.
Mm-hmm. And a good way to distinguish is to say a service animal is trained to help one person with specific tasks, right, to mitigate their disability. Therapy animals are trained and have a natural disposition to work with a wide variety of people, because people do confuse, or people will call us and say, I need a therapy animal for my son who's autistic, or for my daughter, or, they don't understand a therapy animal is a different thing than a service animal or an emotional support animal. But a therapy animal should be comfortable with a wide variety of people, situations, and places.
Are you using the term therapy animal and emotional support animal interchangeably, or are you making a distinction between the two of them as well?
No, an emotional support animal, again, should be assisting one person, whatever my psychiatric disorder is, right? Or however you release that, right? That emotional support animal is for me. And again, there are some amazing emotional support animals who help people with PTSD. I've met veterans with PTSD who couldn't leave the house because the trauma is so strong unless they have their animal. They feel safer with their animal. Now, I don't know what the line is when an emotional support animal can be termed a service animal.
Service.
At what point, if I have depression, if I have anxiety, if I have PTSD, at what point does that go from being an emotional support animal to a service animal? And I believe there just really should be service animals who have legal access rights. That's just my personal opinion, right? Mm-hmm. If you have a psychiatric diagnosis that makes it difficult for you to get through life without an animal, should that be a service animal, not an emotional support animal? Because again, that emotional support designation became so misused. That's how people were getting on airplanes. About 5 years ago on the news in New York, there was a woman at Newark Airport who walked in with a peacock on her shoulder. That was her emotional support peacock that she was going to take on the plane. There was an emotional support mouse that got out of someone's shirt on the plane, right? That emotional support. And as Rika said, emotional support animals usually can get into housing that does not allow animals. So very frequently you'll hear people say, oh, just get your animal designated an ESA, an emotional support animal, to be able to have them in house. No, the therapy animal is a distinction unto itself, right? That a therapy animal is not primarily a working animal. I mean, even though Rika's animals work a lot, they still might work 2 hours a day or less, and not every day of the week. And those other 22 hours a day, they're her pets.
We're chasing squirrels and barking at bunnies, just like everybody on all the other pets.
Right.
But when they're on the job,
they're working, and it varies greatly. You know, we have some people who volunteer once a month for a couple of hours because that's all their schedule allows. So they're therapy animals only working 2 hours a month. Some of them work 3 times a week, but they're not primarily working animals. They're our pets, and they do happen to do some volunteer work, just the way you might go volunteer for a few hours.
Yeah, right. I think it's so great that not only is this incredible program in place nationwide, and now you're making me want to look up Pittsburgh Pet Partners and and see if we are. Do you know if we're at Pittsburgh, Laura?
I would go
Familiar with that or not?
I don't. I would go to petpartners.org. That's the national organization. You can see who all the community partners are. You can also talk to facilities in your area that have therapy animals and ask them. Some facilities want the therapy animals to be affiliated with a certain organization. So, for example, we have programs that we run. It's all Denver Pet Partners volunteers at a certain hospital or at a certain school. But our volunteers like Rika are actually free to go out on their own and visit any place they want. So a lot of people will find a neighborhood school or senior living facility and go visit there. But there are other therapy animal organizations out there too, and some facilities might. So there might be some facilities that are affiliated with other therapy animal organizations and want those. But if you go to petpartners.org, the national organization, you can see if there is a Pet Partners affiliate in your area.
I just love that not only does an organization like this exist, but that there's the criteria, like I said in the beginning of this, has nothing to do with how this dog was bred or how this dog came in or when this dog came into life. I mean, I think, Rika, your story is so great where, you know, you've got these 2 dogs that come from these unknown backgrounds and you just kind of saw this potential in them and you worked with them. And I think that can give so many people hope to think, you know, I have this foster dog or this adopted dog that's a little bit of a challenge, but if I continue to stay consistent and persistent and show this dog love and respect and teach this dog some affirmations, apparently, I can get this dog to really be a really special dog. I would imagine too that part of the reason that the dogs are so exhausted after these visits, Laura, is that it's like enrichment for them. So they have all these people coming to them, but they're also doing something. Their minds are occupied and they're smelling all these different smells. And I have been talking a lot about enrichment and I've been learning a lot about important enrichment. And so it's just important for the dogs too, to get out there and have those interactions.
Also, I help people understand because they say, well, they're just laying there.
Yeah.
I say, if you have people coming up and touching you, and dogs or animals are so sensitive, they're actually absorbing that energy. That takes a toll over time. They have to be able to. I always make sure after I work my dogs, I give them something fun to do. I make sure that I take them out for a nice walk, or they get a special treat, or something that lets them know that they can, as I say, unlax. You've done your job. Now you can be a dog again.
Yeah, it takes a lot. You know, people always come up and say, ooh, these dogs have the best job in the world. And sometimes I'll say to them, well, if I put you in the middle of this room, I was at the University of Denver yesterday, and about 300 students came through to see 5 animals, and we had 2 shows, 5 animals each. If I put you in the middle of this room and 300 people who come through can come up and pat you, touch you, the head, the shoulder, the back. How would you feel after a little while, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
this is why we teach our handlers to be so in tune with their animals. Sometimes an hour into something, you have to say, this isn't working for my dog right now. It's time to go, right? We teach people not bring their animals if they're feeling unwell. We teach them it's always okay to leave a situation if it's not the right thing. I mentioned earlier, Pet Partners limits us to 2 hours a day. And when I started volunteering, I thought that seemed silly. I could go sit with my dog all day at the library. But we started to watch the animals and realize that a 2 hour shift is actually a long time for an animal to be petted by a lot of different people. And so we started shortening these shifts at schools and places like that down to an hour or an hour and a half. And really, after an hour, I was watching the dogs yesterday after the hour and a half shift. The dogs did a great job, but then all the dogs said, hour and a half, time to go. It's a lot. And Rika mentioned, the dogs really take in the emotion, right? If somebody's really feeling strong emotion, you can see the dogs, you can see their face, you can see them feeling it too. And just like people, it's hard to keep taking in that emotion from others, be able to deal with that and not overload yourself.
Anybody that's loved a dog knows that they take in your emotions. But you know what I mean? Like anybody that's ever had a dog that they've just bonded with and loved knows that that's true.
So, Laura, you mentioned that over time, the needs for both the handler and the animal changes. Now, my Baku is now 15 years old, which is right up there, and Bindi is 13. And I noticed that when they were younger, 2 hours they could do pretty handily. Now I really monitor anything over about an hour and a quarter. I can see the energy start lagging. So I have had to change what I do. And of course, I'm not getting any younger either, just a note. So I have to change what I do because our circumstances have changed.
Yes. And it's all about knowing what's right for you and your animals, right? I said it has to be that win-win-win situation. And again, we only do this if it's the right thing for the animals and the animals are enjoying it. And we are taught as handlers how to watch for stress signs in our animals. There are general stress signs that even pet owners should learn in their animals. But the more we work with our animals, the more we get to know them, the closer we become. When I worked with my therapy animal, I think we worked together for 7 years. I couldn't believe how well I got to know her. I could just look at her face and know if she was saying yes or no about something, right? It's just so important that you're in tune with your animals, whether they're pets or show dogs or therapy animals, that you understand what's going on with them, right? I always stay with the therapy animals. They did not wake up and say, Mom, I would like to go visit the hospital today. They might really enjoy it, but they didn't sign up for the class and sign up for the evaluation, right? And so it's our responsibility, if we're living with animals, to do what's right for them always.
You asked about how people get involved in this kind of work.
Mm-hmm.
We offer through Pet Partners. Denver Pet Partners offers an introductory class that you can either take online or in person that will give you outlines about here are characteristics that you might want to look for in your animal that might mean that you are a match for this kind of work. So and people take that without their animals. So the initial step into this world is actually a class that helps you understand the scope of the work, what's required, the kinds of characteristics that make a team successful.
So is that on the website under the Become a Therapy Team? Laura?
There's an upcoming courses section, and
yes, I see it here.
There's a class called Volunteering with Your Pet. We have no more scheduled for the rest of this year, but we will have them next year. But also that is something that National Pet Partners Organization offers. So again, at petpartners.org, you can find the training classes. The class that you need to take before you can evaluate with your animal is called the Handler Workshop. And so you can take that primarily online now. Most places offer it online. And then you pass an assessment, and then you can evaluate with your animal. that nationalpetpartners.org has a lot of information about becoming a therapy animal team. And then denverpetpartners.org is our local website if you happen to be in the local area and want to learn more about us.
I will link for anyone that is interested in taking a look and seeing if you and your pet would be a good fit. I will link the National Pet Partners as well as the local Denver chapter information in here. That way, in the show notes, that way you can sign up for the course, take a look, and see if that is something that you would be suited for.
Yeah, that volunteering with your pet class is free, so it's a great way. And there are a lot of online offerings of it now, or will be in the new year. So it's a great way to just get introduced, even if you have a young puppy. Dogs need to be a year old before they can evaluate, but people sometimes call us because they have a new puppy and they want to know what kinds of things they should do. And again, I would say with any animal that you have, there are things you want to do, right, to make them comfortable and happy in the world. And a lot of those are things that will help them be a therapy animal later.
Yeah, I that's such a great tip. So and actually, just to sort of correct you just a little bit so people can hear it verbally, it's actually petpartners.org. The national is not part of the web address. So, but I will link that in the show notes. That way people can go on and take a look and see if it might be a good fit. So that's wonderful. Thank you. And I always like to ask the people that come onto the podcast, do they have any one thing that they would like to leave people with today? Any one thing that they would like to have as like a parting bit of information? Laura, you go ahead and leave us with something today.
I started volunteering 11 years ago, doing this work with my therapy animal, and then she had to retire for health reasons. And I continued to volunteer on the board of directors and as an evaluator, and I do other things because I believe so strongly in what the organization does and this power of people and animals together. But I feel it's such an honor to have animals in our lives. We're so fortunate. And as I mentioned, those of us who work with our animals get to know them so well. So I just think it's an honor to have these animals and to try to understand them better and get to know them and figure out how to work with them, whether it's a working animal or not. So, if you have a pet in your life, just think about that, right? You're fortunate to have this, and it's your job to do the best that you can to give them a good life and a happy life.
Really well said. Rika, go ahead.
I would add to that as well that it's all based on trust. So every action that you take with your animal, the question is, does this build trust or does it fracture it? So keep doing things that build that trust, and then the outcome will be a good animal companion, whether they are in therapy work or not.
And, just to add one thing to that, actually, my second evaluation with my therapy dog, the evaluator wrote, she trusts you. She really trusts you, because we see when the animal and the person are coming in together and evaluating, the animal might be a little bit uncertain, but if the handler is in tune and supporting the animal is then sometimes able to do things they would not be able to do without a supportive handler, right? Because they trust each other.
I love that. I love that. Well, I can't thank you ladies enough for being part of the podcast today and talking to us about pet partners and about your dogs. And it's really been such an informational thing for me. The work that you're doing is so incredible. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Our pleasure indeed.
All right. Thanks again. Thank you again to Rika and Laura from Denver Pet Partners for giving us so much incredible information about the program they run and the benefits of really exploring the human and animal bond. Today for the Foster Spotlight, I kept the animal local to Colorado. And so I found this girl in a Littleton, Colorado Humane Society of the South Platte Valley. And they are located in Littleton, Colorado. I will link the bio and the organization in the show notes. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about this dog because when I came across her profile, I was narcissistic enough to decide that I had to feature her because her name is Kelly. She is a really beautiful, some sort of hound, maybe pit bull terrier mix. She's going to be probably anywhere between 26 and 60 pounds, medium size when she's full grown, which she probably already is because she's about 2 years old. But I'm going to go ahead and read her bio. She has great big ears. She's mostly brown with a white patch on her chest, and I'd really like to get her some spotlight here. So here we go with the bio. Hi there, my name is Kelly. I am a gorgeous young lady with a great personality. I am social, intelligent, and active. I have attended training classes and am one smart pup. I enjoy playing with other dogs and would love to have a canine companion that matches my energy. I look forward to getting out for adventure and exercise, attending training classes, and spending quality time with my humans. My adoption fee includes spay, a microchip, vaccines, and a 14-day limited health guarantee through Redstone Animal Hospital. Come and visit me today. If you are interested in checking Callie out, again, please check the show notes. She looks like a really great girl that needs a great home. As always, you can follow the show on Instagram at the Foster Files Podcast. You can send me an email, drop me a note at thefosterfilespodcast@gmail.com. And you can get the podcast anywhere where you get any of your other podcasts. So please follow the show, subscribe, like, rate, and review us. Do all the things so we can make sure that we're getting this great information out there. Thank you so much for listening and have a wonderful day.